Hey everyone, I'm Sumek Agarkar and welcome to Agarkar Media Academy. This is the 30th tutorial in Blender tutorial series for beginners. It's one of the first tutorial series which I've run on YouTube, which has gone so far. 30 is a big number for me. So just a story. Last time I tried to do videos or tutorials basically was for C and C++ tutorials, and I had a list of 30 tutorials that I wanted to do for C and C++ so that I can teach C and C++ both of them in just 30 lectures or 30 tutorials. So I never got beyond, I think, 5 or 6 tutorials, and that too were very bad, and I just deleted all those videos because they were not really up to the mark. But now this is the first time where I'm up to 30, the mark of 30. So I'm really really happy with how far I've got in this tutorial series. So we were in the last tutorial, in the 28th 29th tutorial, we were exactly here, and we did all this. We had a look at shape keys, right? And in this tutorial we are going to go for something new. We are just going to learn something new in this tutorial, of course, as usual. What we are going to learn is we are going to learn all these options right here. So these are the animation options or render options, which you need to understand before you can render out images, because these things are going to affect the look of the image, look of the video or image that you render out. It's going to affect it a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up one of the projects that I've already done, and I've posted the video of the same on this YouTube channel so that you can watch the video if you want to understand what's actually going on, right? Because I cannot, basically showing you all those options requires me to have something to look at, right? So I'm not going to, waste time on creating something. I'm just going to show you through this, right? So this is the sofa 3D model that I made in the one of the videos which I've posted on the YouTube channel, so that you can go and watch the video also, right? And we are just going to understand all these options using the same, right? So first of all, this is the model, 3D model, right? And it's right now it's not looking that great, of course, because it's looking very plain. It's having no reflections, accurate reflections and all that stuff. You can see that the sun is right around here, but it's not giving off the light as much, right? So this is what we have currently. Now what we're going to do is we are just first of all, I think, yeah. So what we're going to do is I have, in the world settings mode, I have this sky texture right here, which I don't want, because that's changing it a lot. That's making the difference a lot, by a lot. Let's go to the, yeah, this is my default background, right? So this is somewhere here. If I just turn on the overlays here, right here, so this is my sun lamp. Here you can see sun lamp at 4. Maybe I don't want 4, maybe I want 10, let's say, because it's going to be very bright. Then 10 is good. Now, so this is the model, and here you can see that the reflections are not really that great. You're just going to understand what these things do to the model, right? So first of all, what is ambient occlusion? Ambient occlusion is basically at the crevices. Let's say we have a crevice like this. If we have an edge here like this, right, then at the edges there is no, the light bounces very little. Because of the edges, the light bounces very little. So at those points, at the crevices, mostly at the edges, the light is not that bright, and that's why it creates some darkness. That is exactly what is called as ambient occlusion. Ambiently it is occluded means it's sometime some kind of hidden. So because of that crevice, because the light cannot bounce so much to that crevice or the edge where light cannot go through, at those positions you will see, mostly at the corners, you will see that the light is not that bright, and it's some shadowy or darkish amount type of thing, right? So that is exactly what is ambient occlusion. If I just turn it on, you can see right here, just right here, where the two things mix and match here, right here. here you can then see that the ambient occlusion would take into effect. If I just increase the distance, as soon as I increase the distance, you can see some amount of shadowiness being created right here, right? So that is, maybe it's not really very that visible right here, but with time you'll be able to see when we have some really awesome, really crevices like thing right here. Then at those times you'll be able to see the ambient occlusion into account, right? So that is it. These are other options which are just about, um playing around with those options, and it's just advanced. They're not going to go through all of that. Now bloom is basically glow. Bloom is a glow. Glow means when light hits something, it glows, and that's what's called as bloom. Maybe it's not really the best way to make you understand, but if you just turn it on, you can see everything becomes some kind of glowy atmosphere, right? So this is without the bloom, this is with the bloom. If I just turn down the threshold, so you will be able to see glow even more. This is without the bloom, this is with the bloom. So wherever there is light, if I just turn down this shading color, let's say this object is selected. If I just create a new material for this, and I give it a gray material, just like that, or maybe blackish material with high roughness, because that's the way I like it. Now here you'll be able to see bloom, right? Or maybe let's make it completely dark. Is it already dark? Yes, it's already dark. And here you can see now the bloom is basically some brightness, some changes in the um, some light hits and it just glows, and that's what is called as bloom. So that is bloom. Now depth of field is for, if this is not really that important, but yeah, depth of field, if you have the camera, then for the camera we can have the depth of field. It's not really that important. I have not seen it being, used that often. Subsurface scattering, it's on by default, so there is nothing much to do. If we just turn up the samples, there will be more subsurface scattering. What is subsurface scattering? Basically, on the subsurface surfaces there will be some scattering of light, and that just gives the reflections and stuff like that. Mostly what we do is to optimize the scene better so that the render can be faster. We just decrease the samples. By default I think it is at 7, but we can just decrease the samples to, let's say, 3 or 4 to make the render faster. Now subsurface screen space reflections. What screen space reflections is, basically, if I just turn down this color again to something like gray or something like that, with less roughness, then subsurface screen surfaces would just make the light bounce off through the light comes here and then bounces off, so there will be some screen space reflections going around, right? So that is what is exactly called. Maybe it's not really that visible right here on this model, but yeah, that is what screen space reflections is. Motion blur is mostly for videos. So with motion blur there would be some motion blurring going on. So if you have some 3D, not 3D, but motion blur TV screens, if you have seen the LCD panel or LED panels, the new LED TVs which have motion blur, you can see that there is some motion blurriness. Wherever there is motion, it becomes blur, so it does not look harsh to the eyes, and that's what exactly motion blur is all about. Volumetrics, would be looking at volumetrics in some other tutorial. We have already seen the volumetrics as a node, and that's just about it. It's just about optimizing the volumetrics using these many options, but not that really important. Just that volumetric shadows is important if you want some shadows in the volumes, right? So we have already seen how to create volumetric lights or fog inside of Blender, and that is exactly where we can use all of these settings. Here, if you have some hair particles, we'll be looking at it in some other tutorial. So if you have some hair particles, then that's for that. Shadows, it's all about shadows, how the shadows will be created. So this is one of the most important things in the Eevee rendering engine. All these options are for Eevee rendering engine. There is one more engine which is the cycles engine. We're going to look at that in the next tutorial, but for now we are just going to look at the Eevee rendering engine, right? Of course, shadows is this one is all about the depthness or the accuracy of the shadows right here. So if I just decrease this, you can see that the quality of shadow has just decreased. If I just make it high, the quality of the shadow then again changes, right? So it is all about this. If I have the cascade style at 128, you can see the shadows are completely bad, and if I just make it cascade style high, then the shadows are really very sharp. I can have high bit depth, so it just goes on increasing and increasing. If I just turn off soft shadows, then there would be just one shadow being casted. If you have soft shadows, then the angle of the light that we have decided would have some softness in the light. Now here you can see some sampling going on, right? So this sampling is all about this sampling right here. That's why I waited for the sampling one till here. You can look at this, that if we have just sample of one also, then the model would look almost the same, right? But as we go on increasing the sampling, the number of samples in the Eevee would make a difference. So if we have just, let's say, 128 samples in the viewport and just wait for it to render it out, then you would be looking at it that the shadows are becoming more and more softer, right? And the banding of the shadows is being removed more and more, right? Let's say 512, because that's the one of the highest that you can ever go. Now as you can see, the more I'm waiting for it, the softer the shadows are becoming. If we are at, let's say, by default it is at 16, at 16 you can see the banding going on. So this render sampling is also going to go for the same thing, and that's really a very important thing to understand. If you want your shadows to be softer, then you will have to go for a really high sampling rate, so a sampling number. And if you are just okay with harsh shadows like that, then you can go for 5 or 6, maybe 4 would do also, and that would make no difference to the overall object, right? So that is really important to understand optimization wise. Inside of cycles, it's a completely different scenario. It's not about the sampling right here, like we cannot control the shadows and stuff like that there. So that's completely different thing, right? Indirect lighting is all about how indirect lighting works. We are going to look at this indirect lighting in some other video, not in this video. So we're just skipping the indirect lighting also. In the film is all about how thick you want the film size to be. If you want the so this background, if this is on, then the background will be visible, and if it is transparent, then it will be transparent. So if you want to have some PNG effects, PNG objects or PNG images, or the image or the videos with no background or transparent background, then inside of film you'll have to type this or check this transparent thing, right? And then we have simplify. It's not visible just right here, but if you just render this image out, it would be more visible. So simple makes it simple, right? Simple to look at. You can see some banding going on right here. If you make it freestyle though, then there is some cartoonish like structures which you can make out of that. So here you can see cartoonish like outlining is being performed right here, right? Cartoon like these edges are being made black. So this is what is all about the freestyle mode right here in the blender. And then we have color management, which is one of the most important things right here. So color management is all about how colorful how the colors of your image should be. So filmic is by default, it is new. Before that it was standard. So here you can see the changes in the colors, right? So standard is not that dynamic in the lighting. Filmic on the other hand is more dynamic in the lighting section. So maybe I'll have a video about how dynamic lights or how dynamic the camera of the or any physical camera can be, and that's all about that. Just to understand, standard is a standard camera, it has less dynamic range, and filmic has more dynamic range. False color is very important because this gives us the brightness thing, right? So the more so the brighter the areas is, it would be, I think, more red. So I just select the light lamp right here, and I'm just going to increase the strength, right? So as soon as I increase the strength, you can see that the bright parts are becoming more and more red. Of course, this is not changing. 20, let's say. Then here you can see the colors are being changed by drastically, right? So this is all about it. This is at 0. um, so blue is basically not lighted at all, and uh, so the more greener it becomes, the more light it is having, right? It is something like that. And if it goes red, then it is very very bright. So this is really important. You don't want to have your objects just around right here, because then it would not be visible in the color section, right? If you go just here, you can see that it's not looking that great. And this one, that's why false color one is really really important, because that just gives you how good it will look. If I just increase that and I go to standard, now here you can see it is brightened up. So that's really really important, one of the most important view transforms, and that's really that, right? sRGB, xyz, these are not really that important. You can change the exposure of the overall camera, let's say, or the scene here. So if you just want to have a darker images, then you can decrease the darkness, or you can have some more exposure, so that more light is being captured with the less lighting, right? And gamma is all about the gamma, how whiteness you want in your objects. We can also use curves. This is new feature, I think. So you can have some already you can have some curves, color grading to it, done to it. So one of my favorites is blue to be higher, green to be a little bit higher so that it looks tealish, something like that, and red to be a little bit lower, or maybe sometimes a little bit higher, something like this. This is, sorry, this is one of my favorite looking scenes. Maybe I have of course exaggerated it a lot, but this is how I like it, because tealish environments look the best. Something like this tealish color with reds being really really uh, increased, it really looks great. So this is what these curves are all about. Of course, you can do the transformations from here also. I understand this is one of the most boring, one of the most boring tutorials on this YouTube channel, because yeah, I mean, these optimizations or these settings are important if you are going for some detailings while rendering, and rendering the image as well as the animations. Otherwise, if you are just modeling out, then you don't need these things to worry about, right? So I think you learned something new from this video. This is all about the settings for rendering inside of Eevee rendering engine. In the next tutorial, we are going to look at the settings for the Cycles rendering engine. So see you in the next tutorial. I hope you learned something new from this video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, please subscribe the channel. And if you have any suggestions or queries, please write down in the comment sections below. See you in the next tutorial. Till then, keep smiling and keep learning.